Today is Saturday, October 24th, 2015. This morning, I'd like to take a look at a Jataka tale that we've looked at before. Um, but, you know, stories have endlessly extending uh, layers. So I'd like to look at this Jataka again because it's a very uh, important one, even though it's hardly known by anyone who even has heard of the Jataka tradition. And whether you know it or not, there are very few Zen Buddhists who know anything about the Jataka tradition and the great vow of the Bodhisattva as expressed in countless efforts through countless lives. All the great teachers of the past knew of the Jatakas. All the great Zen teachers of the past referred to the Jatakas, but Western Zen students and even Western Zen teachers hardly know about them at all. For whatever reason, karmically, the Jatakas have become really central to my sense of upholding and manifesting, embodying the great vow of the Bodhisattva in our life as Zen practitioners. And so Sunyana Roshi and I, for the last 7 years, have been doing Jataka Sesshin together. Also, Taigen Henderson Roshi and I have been doing Jataka Sesshin together, and I've been teaching Zen through the foundation of Jataka tales, stories of the Buddha's past lives. One piece of news I can share with you is that there will be a new book. Wisdom Publications seems to be very excited, actually. We shall see. But that's their word about a new book that I'm completing on the Jataka tales and Zen practice, especially, in fact, entirely on stories in which a Buddha in his past lives had difficulties, had to deal with issues, had to deal with disappointments and problems. And if we think that the Buddha was always in a wonderful place, always things going great for him, it's eye-opening to discover every issue that we may face, every difficulty we may face. At some point or another, he did too. Which means our vow can be just as real and can manifest exactly as we are. Which means our practice in the midst of our difficulties can proceed exactly as it did for him. No difference whatsoever. That to me is the great lesson of the Jatakas. Today we'll take a look at such a story. It's the Citta Sambhutta Jataka, which is number 498 in the Pali collection of 547 such stories. Long ago, the Buddha was born as a khandala, or untouchable. On the same day, a son was also born to his mother's sister. The Bodhisattva was given the name Citta and his cousin Sambhutta. As they grew, they trained as street sweepers, an art among khandalas. When they were in their teens, one went to the city's north gate to show his talent, and the other to the east gate. Two high-class young women, a wealthy merchant's daughter and the daughter of the king's chaplain, made plans to meet in a park. With a crowd of followers carrying their parasols, food, and drink, one went through the north gate and the other through the gate of the east. The crowd attending each one was looking forward to sharing in a wonderful outing for free food, free drink. Hooray! The young women each saw one of the khandala cousins, and each one exclaimed, "Who is this?" An untouchable, they were told. "Oh, evil omen!" each exclaimed, and turning back, refused to go to the park. The crowds that followed were enraged. "Vile outcasts, because of you we've lost free food and drink. Now you'll pay for it." And they beat the two sweepers, leaving them senseless. Remember, one of these two sweepers was the Buddha in a past life. When they came back to themselves, bruised and bloodied, the cousins found each other They talked and decided our misery is due to our low birth. Let's disguise ourselves as Brahmins, that is, high class people, go to the city of Takasila, which was noted for its teachers, and practice there with a spiritual teacher. That's what they did. Though a rumor began to spread of two untouchables who, disguised as Brahmins, were pursuing religious practice, which at that time, was closed to untouchables. They were seen as polluted beings. They were not worthy of practicing any form of religious dharma. As it turned out, Citta, the Buddha in a past life, excelled in the practice, and Sambhutta, his cousin, did well too. One day a villager offered a feast to their teacher and his students. Their master couldn't go, but Citta, who was the senior student, was sent to represent him in his place. Citta offered a blessing at the meal, and all began to eat. Sambhutta got a piece of hot food caught in his mouth, and it burned. In pain, he forgot his high caste disguise, and in the common street language of the untouchables, the gondolas, cried out, "Hot, ain't it, bro?" Citta exclaimed in the same vein, "Spit it out, man. Heave it up." The others looked at each other. "What kind of language is that?" they asked. Citta quickly added another blessing to the meal, ending further discussion. But later, back at the hermitage, the others talked about it, and it dawned on them. That was gondola talk, and they remembered the rumor of the untouchables who were disguised as Brahmins practicing religious dharma, shouting, "Untouchables are polluting our pure teachings." They beat Citta and Sambhutta, beat the Buddha to be, drove them into the forest, and locked the hermitage gates against them. Just to interpose for a minute, perhaps you've had some such moment like that in your life. Citta and Sambhutta built huts, became hermits, and continued their practice. In time, they aged and died. They were reborn, but not as human beings. They were reborn as fawns on the banks of the Naranjana River, and as fawns went about enjoying the fruits of their old friendship. One day, when they were standing under a tree, a hunter hurled his spear and killed them both. They came to life, not as human beings, but as osprey chicks on the banks of the Narbutta River, and again enjoyed each other's company. One day they were spied by a bird catcher who killed them. Then they were born back into the human world, and in a lofty station. Citta was the son of the chaplain in the city of Kosambi, and Sambhutta was prince, son of the king of Uttarapankala. From early childhood, they remembered their past lives. Sambhutta, however, only remembered the difficulty of the gondola, untouchable, birth, while Citta, the Buddha in that past life, remembered the whole string: gondolas, fawns, osprey, and now chaplain's son and king's son. At 16, the bodhisattva, who had been Citta, renounced the world, went into the forest, built a hermitage, made vows, and resumed a life dedicated to spiritual practice. He gained insight and continued in the forest in deep awareness, eternal, joyous, selfless, pure. Around this time, the king, Sambhutta's father, died, and Sambhutta was made king. Citta, the Buddha to be, in a former life thought, "I wonder if my Dharma brother, Sambhutta, is now king." He extended his mind and found that indeed he was. Then he thought, as a new king, he'll be too busy to have the time or interest in spiritual practice. When he's older and more settled, I'll visit him and see if we might practice together again. 50 years went by. King Sambhutta had sons and daughters and ruled the land, while Citta continued with his practice. One day Citta rose into the air and flew to the garden of Sambhutta's palace. A lad gathering sticks for fuel was singing King Sambhutta's coronation hymn. Those verses that Sambhutta had uttered when he became king 50 years earlier were popular. Lovely verses, said Citta. They are the king's, said the lad. Has anyone ever sung a response to them? Asked the sage. No, said the lad, no one has. If I taught you one, could you sing it? Asked the bodhisattva. With pleasure, said the lad. So Citta taught him a verse, saying, when the king sings his verses, you sing this third one. He'll be pleased and will reward you. Hurrying to the palace, the boy saluted the king and announced his intention. The king sang his 2 verses. Every good deed bears fruit, soon or late. No deed without result, and nothing vain. Sambhutta's might has grown great, thus do his virtues bear him fruit again. Second verse. Every good deed bears fruit, soon or late. No deed without result, and nothing vain. That is, nothing we do does not have its consequences. Nothing is in vain. Who knows if Citta also may be great, and like myself his heart have brought him gain. The boy cleared his throat and sang, every good deed bears fruit, soon or late. No deed without result, and nothing vain. Behold, my lord, see Citta at your gate, for like yourself his heart has brought him gain. The king sat up. He sang, then are you Citta? Or the tale did hear from him, or did some other make you know? The song is sweet to me, have no fear. A village and more bounty I'll bestow. The lad, warming to it, sang his own response. I am not Citta, but I heard the thing. It was a sage laid on me this command. Go, recite an answer to the king, and be rewarded by his grateful hand. The king exclaimed, Citta is here, I must see him. He rode in a chariot to the park and found the sage who in past lives had been his cousin and Dharma brother and fawn brother and osprey brother, though he did not remember that. Instantly, Sambhutta felt happy. Yes, this was his old friend, no mistaking. Dismounting, he directed his men to wash the sage's feet and offer good food. Then Sambhutta said, I am so glad to have found you. I remember our painful Khandala birth, and see that we have each prospered since that difficult time. I still revere our friendship. I offer you half my kingdom. Rule beside me and know the benefits of high estate. Citta smiled. I appreciate your offer, but such a life no longer interests me. Keep your kingdom. I too remember our Khandala birth. Our own thoughts and deeds brought us to that painful condition. Later we were deer by the Naranjana, and osprey by the Nirbudha. Now here we are, sage and king. In time, death will again claim us. In time, we will be born again. Deeds that create suffering should be shunned. Deeds that lead to misery, no matter how enjoyable they appear, should be avoided. Deeds stained by selfishness should not be entertained. Such deeds lead to the misery we knew too well in the past. Avoid such thinking and such deeds by all means. Sambhutta exclaimed, your words are true. I see their value, brother, but I find it hard to cast desires away. As king, my every want is fulfilled. I'm looked up to and my commands followed. I've grown attached to this life and cannot easily toss my passions and wrong thinking away. I can't walk the lofty path you've attained. Still, I want to know a way that leads to happiness. Advise me. Tell me what to do. How can I walk a righteous way as the person I am? The Buddha responded, Lord of men, you are beset by passions common to all. Do your duty. Don't let unjust wars or undue taxes plague your people. Keep their welfare in mind. As king, serve your people and your land. Invite the wise to your palace. Build places of practice. Listen to good teaching and think deeply on it. Your happiness will increase and your land and people prosper. In time, you will attain higher realms where your deeper purpose will be more easily fulfilled. If you find it hard to transcend desire, I'll give you a verse to keep in mind. And then he sang, no roof to shelter from the sky, among the dogs we lay. Our mothers nursed us as they walked, but you're a king today. Remember that from our gondola birth. That's how hard it was. We had no roof over us. Our mothers put us down among the dogs. When they nursed us, they had to hurry along the highway. They had no shelter whatsoever. Karma brought us there, as well as to where we are today. Perhaps we'll meet again. Citta shook the dust from his feet, rose into the air, and flew off to his hermitage in the Himalayas. The king, watching him go, was moved. My old friend is a saint, he thought. He called his youngest son to him, renouncing the kingdom. He gave it to his son to rule. Then he too set off for the Himalayas and joined Citta and his community. In time, the former king, Sambhutta, realized something significant. Self-centeredness fell from him, and he too entered the way. When that life ended, as all lives must, Citta and Sambhutta attained for a time to Brahma's world, a heavenly realm. But then they went on, being born, aging, dying, over and over, with many lives of friendship and practice still ahead. Citta was the Buddha, and Sambhutta his dear cousin, Ananda, he of faithful memory, through whom the Buddhist teachings, the sutras, have come down to us. So that's the story. Quite a story. So let's look at it from the perspective of practice. It's normal to hope that because Zen practice is such a good thing, once we begin to practice, only good things will happen to us. It can be disappointing to discover that it just isn't so. While it is a universal wish that good people will enjoy a good life, and only the wicked suffer, if we keep our eyes open, we soon see that things are not so rationally arranged. Buddhist teaching says that karma is subtle and complex. What we experience might be the outcome of recent thoughts and deeds, or could stem from karma so old it can't even be traced in the lines of this world. Classical Buddhism says that karma can take millions of years, even millions of kalpas to ripen. It can take an immensely long time for the consequences of past actions to catch up with us. We are, all of us, then going to be complex mixes of so-called good and so-called bad karma. The issue of injustice can be a stumbling block for many people, especially those in theistic religions. If God is good, why do bad things happen to good people? Shouldn't bad things only happen to bad people? What's wrong with the man upstairs? He's not right in his head, is how my father, a Jewish World War II vet, would express his considerable doubt and anger about the sad, crazy, and horribly unjust things he'd seen in his life. His question goes to the root of our anguish. In short, if God is good, then why a Holocaust? Why spiders, gnats, and poisonous bugs that sting and bite? Why tsunamis, earthquakes, and eruptions in which innocents suffer? Why would a good God create or allow such things? Why is there suffering and evil? Why illness and poverty? Why are they visited on good, kind people while mean, selfish, nasty folk are blessed with health and prosperity? Why is there darkness, not just beautiful, sweet, healing light? Our own version of such questions may lead us to a path of practice. That once we begin walking the path, do we begin to think, now everything will be all right? And in a deep sense, it is and will be. But is the scenery always rosy? Are we disappointed when it's not? How about when we meet obstacles or face injustice or malice? Does it strike us as wrong? Do we think, but it shouldn't be like this? I'm sincerely practicing. Oshikaplo used to say when speaking about practice, in the beginning it's roses, roses, roses. Then it's thorns, thorns, thorns. As we practice, our determination will be tested. The depths of our commitment sounded. But isn't that what we want? What we've been searching for? A goal worthy of our effort? One that takes everything we've got? One that demands that we be real, that we see our fears, shortcomings, and unrealistic hopes, and still go courageously on into the unknown of this present moment, this breath and the next, this thought and the next arising of thought, this problem, this insight. Isn't that what it should be about? The path of sustained exertion, as Zen Master Dogen called it, encompasses lifetimes, many births, many deaths, many rebirths, as the Jatakas show. Given our complex mix of karma, which classical Buddhism says extends back through an endless past, painful things, things not easy to swallow or digest, are going to happen. In this Jataka, the Buddha-to-be, who'd been on the path of serious practice for lifetimes, is born as an untouchable, is beaten, an outcast, experiences poverty and scorn. Even the Buddha-to-be couldn't escape difficulty. Literal escape from difficulties may not be what Zen practice offers. Though, if we cause less harm, and practice surely helps us to do that, we're likely to suffer less harm in turn. But it can take a long time before the results of our wiser behaviors surface. It won't be immediate. It's just one more strand in the mix. The consequences of old, even ancient, thoughts and deeds will continue to arise, causing difficulties. Freedom from difficulties is not the freedom we are going to find. Freedom to accept our karma fully is. Painful things happen to all, good or bad. Life on this earth is life on a saha world, as the sutras say. That is life on a bearable or tolerable world, not one gloriously, radiantly wonderful. There are such worlds, sutras say, where one never feels compelled to work on oneself. Worlds where the party of life is so great, nothing more is needed, nothing called forth from us. Tradition says that, spiritually speaking, we develop slowly on such worlds. There's no need to do more than eat, breathe, and party. Conversely, our saha world is not so totally, overwhelmingly hellish and crushing that the inner work we might do remains beyond what is humanly possible. Sutras say there are also such hell worlds. Our world, however, is one on which spiritual practice is not just possible, but reasonable. There are clearly many worlds here on earth, heaven worlds and hell worlds. But in the middle place, this middle earth, sutras say we can, if we choose to work on ourselves, evolve more rapidly than in heavenly realms, as well as with greater sureness than in hellish realms. Not only must we develop wisdom and compassion here, we can. Our mixed realm is a place of opportunity, where the causes and conditions for spiritual ripening are met. We know that it is reasonable, given the actualities of life on earth, to practice. The Jataka of Citta and Sambhutta makes it clear that in past lives the Buddha knew it too, and he too faced challenges in putting that knowledge into action. Yet for him, despite the difficulties, Persevering was the only sane response. And there is also flow. Over time, determined effort gives way to something less self conscious, less self willed, a sustained relationship with the falling away of body and mind in koan study, in breath counting, in experiencing breath, in sitting fully aware, thinking non thinking becomes more natural and normal. Just a point to remember that teisho is a form of practice. It's not about listening alone, it's about being completely present, which means, if you're doing breath practice, to continue that. Of course, if counting breath, that could be interfering with listening. So make just listening your practice. But don't think the words are being spoken to anyone else. They're being spoken to you individually. So your practice is to practice. Let the teisho go right through. It's not a lecture. Be it completely. Practice with it as it completely. Then the effort is not so much to push as to steer. Scrape knees, give way in time. To look, ma, no hands. But as with learning to ride a bike, it takes time, effort, pedaling, band-aids, training wheels, and someone we trust, willing for a time to run alongside before we're up on two wheels, riding confidently along on our own. Here is where a teacher and a sangha, a community of fellow practitioners, come in. We need each other. Dharma friendships persist through lifetimes, as this Jataka shows. Not for the first time do healthy affinities emerge and trustworthy peers and guides appear. This, too, is a mystery, one that the Jatakas attribute, as they do, our difficulties, to the workings of karma, or cause and effect. So it's not always bad news that karma delivers. Our own shallow past deeds and their consequences can, through ongoing practice, deepen and mature. From the classical Buddhist view, difficulties come not as punishments and not randomly, but as ways of working on what's already been created by our own past thoughts and deeds. Difficult situations can be ways of proving new skills and improving old responses. As we continue our zazen, we gain the freedom to choose better responses to old problems. Painful situations still arise, but now we handle them less egotistically, which in turn creates better future karma. Once the Buddha was born as an untouchable, the lowest of the low. He suffered rejection and abuse. Even though he opened the Dharma eye, he suffered seemingly unfairly. He became an outcast. He and his cousin practiced together and lived alone in the forest and died there, unknown, unheralded, forgotten. And he, a future Buddha. Though he had difficult karma to work with, the Jataka also shows that aspiration and affinity for religious practice and awakening have nothing to do with one's station in life. The sixth patriarch was said to have been poor and illiterate. Whether this was true or not, there is speculation, it might not be. The archetype is clear. Practice enlightenment is possible to all, for all. This is clear in the Jatakas right from the start of Buddhist tradition. Given the culture of India 2,500 years ago, the Jatakas offer a revolutionary, deeply democratic view. Birth has no bearing on one's potential. It's simply a matter of seeing a need to practice and then of practicing. In this story, the Bodhisattva died in a state of insight, which still didn't remove all thorns and difficulties from his path. He and his cousin and fellow untouchable Dharma practitioner were reborn as fawns and were slain. They were hatched as osprey chicks and again, before they even matured, were again slain. This seems like shockingly bad karma. Talk about obstacles and difficulties, but then they were chaplain's son and king's son, the result of earlier perseverance in practice, and eventually, the one helping the other, they found their way to freedom. It is not just an old tale. Persevering through difficulties, making choices, going on, finding opportunities, suffering injustices is our story, yours and mine. It is also literally the story of untouchables in India today. Though untouchability has been illegal since independence, prejudice and discrimination against them, which includes beatings, as in this story, continue in rural areas to this day. Untouchables, known as Dalits, are converting to Buddhism in large numbers to change this, taking down remnants of the ancient Indian caste system. Old tales spring to new life before our eyes. In a life of ongoing practice, doors open to reveal a path of opportunity. Will we go through the door or not? If we do, will we keep going? The choice is ours, as is the need. Despite obstacles and difficulties that given the normal mix of so-called good and bad karma is going to arise, that's the good news. The need for us to work on ourselves is so obvious here on our Saha world, it's hard to avoid. Impermanence is in our face all the time, and new opportunities for practice continue to appear. New opportunities and renewed motivations. After the tale was told, the Buddha revealed that in those past lives he had been the wise Citta, and his loyal cousin Ananda, from whom all the sutras come down to us, had been Sambhutta. They were still good friends. Yet even the Buddha and Ananda suffered, as Shakespeare says, the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. How does suffering end? Huangwu Engo, compiler of the Blue Cliff Record, or Heike Ganroka, wrote, "The Diamond Sutra says, if you are about to drop into hell because of your harmful karma in a previous life, then, because you are despised by others, now the harmful karma of your previous life will be extinguished. But extinguishing harmful karma doesn't happen simply by going with the flow or by bowing to an external fate. It doesn't come from being despised either, though surely acquiescence is where freedom must begin." Roshi Kapleau used to say that when painful things happen, things we cannot understand, we should put our palms together in gratitude and say, "Thank you for this opportunity to work out old and painful karma." That is, we should take responsibility and own it. But as we come to see through our practice, it is the effort to be fully present that turns the tide. This is the effort of moment by moment counting, our awareness of breath, of attention to this specific koan point, of just fully sitting. It is the carp leaping upstream to become the dragon it has always been. In the midst of difficulties brought on by old karma, Zen asks us to make the effort to sit up straight and plumb the question beneath it to the bottom. Where is our freedom now? Not just how can we one day be free, but how are we free now? Zen teachings advise us not to sit back and wait to ask Maitreya, the future Buddha. Instead, right now, in the ups and downs, losses and gains, betrayals, disillusionments, miscommunications, misunderstandings, joys, ailments, anxieties, errors, triumphs, and sorrows that are our life. Each of us must and can find our answer and our way and our freedom. The question that life itself puts before each of us is, oh, that the life itself puts before each of us, how in the midst of obstacles, difficulties, sufferings, are we free, is one that Zen deeply honors. For if, as Zen teaching says, each being, each thing, everyone, we ourselves, already from the very beginning, have or actually are this perfect, whole, absolutely free nature, Buddha nature, in exactly the same measure as Shakyamuni and Ananda, where is it now? Where can it be? It's not that by practicing we'll gain it. Where is it now? It is central, not just to our practice, but to our lives. In the midst of ups and downs, as untouchables, fawns, osprey chicks, ascetics, kings, queens, doctors, teachers, accountants, poets, cooks, gardeners, bakers, wise folk or fools, healthy or sick, humans or foxes, our answer and our practice lie there. Of what use are they? Bows to the Buddha and all Dharma ancestors, men and women who, deeply troubled by questions of bondage and freedom, justice and injustice, persevered, working continuously at resolving their doubts, and so entered the way. It is due to their efforts that our feet are on the path today. Yet even the Buddha had rough times, as this Jataka shows, without a roof to shelter from the burning sun, exposed to wind and rain, without a cradle to lie in. He was set down in the dirt among the dogs. Having no home, his mother nursed him as she anxiously hurried along the dusty highways. Yet none of this put a stop to his thirst for the way. In the Grimm's Brothers' so-called fairy tale, The Golden Bird, the good-hearted hero is tested. His failures in each test sets the plot in motion. At one point, he has to sneak into a castle and steal a golden sword. He's advised by the mysterious little fox, who is his helper and guide, not to take the golden scabbard that hangs on the wall, but only take the ordinary leather one. Alas, when he enters the castle and sees the gorgeous sword, he thinks this beautiful golden sword is much too good to be put in an ordinary shabby old leather scabbard. And forgetting the wise fox's advice, he takes the jeweled scabbard and thrusts the sword home. Alarm sound, guards awake, and he's caught. Now he's set to a greater task. He must get the golden bird. But, sagely advises the wise little fox, do not, I repeat, do not take the golden cage to put it in. Just take the ordinary wooden one. Right, gotcha, no problem, says the heroic prince. Then he sees the golden bird and thinks, put such a splendid bird in that plain wooden cage? I don't think so. Oops. Once again, he makes the same error, missing the central point. And again, he's caught. So what is that central point? I suggest that it is the ordinary self. The ordinary itself, rather. Life as it is, with all its warts and difficulties, the difficulties we already know too well, is it. Form is exactly emptiness. Emptiness exactly form. It is not that they are equal. You can't even say that they are one. But as the old tale suggests, ordinary reality doesn't need golden icing on top to become valuable. This is the core of the folk tale and the core of all practice realization. To quote Porky Pig, that's all, folks. Once the Buddha was an untouchable. He practiced. He realized something. He died. He was a fawn. He died. He was an osprey. He died. He was a sage and embodied the way to the best of his ability. He died. Life is full of unfinished stories, unrealized aims. The Buddha wanted so very much to be a Buddha. How many lives did he work at it? How many lives did he fail? Was he dissatisfied throughout all those thousands of Jataka lives, only a fraction of which had been recorded and identified until he sat under the bo tree, glanced up, and saw the morning star? If so, what a waste. All those lives, just so many rungs on a ladder to get somewhere. Rather, why not accept that all those varied lives, let's call them 500 for convenience sake, were, as Muman or Wumen says in his verse on the Fox Koan, lives of grace. Once a monk saw a snake eating a frog. Seeing it brought his self-cherishing mind to stop. I thought that life was suffering, he said. Now I see that suffering is life. So I thought I was going to read from this Nepalese Jataka, but I'm going to save that for another teisho, which pertains to the Buddha's difficulties, even as the Buddha. If you think practicing eventually become free of all your problems, the Buddha lists in one talk that he gave that's recorded in the Sanskrit Buddhist literature, he lists 10 problems that he has as the Buddha: chronic ailments, severe pains, difficulties of lies being spread about him, all that came from specific things he did in past lives. So we're going to give it, I'll give it teisho in the next couple of weeks sometime on the Fox koan that was mentioned here. It's the second koan in the Muman koan, Baichong and the Fox. And we'll look at the issue of being free or not evading karma, that is cause and effect, that the Buddha spoke about when he revealed his 10 difficulties as the Buddha. You don't get free of karma, but you find your freedom right in it. This is really a wonderful core teaching of Buddhist tradition, something we each, no matter what our difficulties, can take quite to heart. So we'll stop here and recite our vows for the welfare of all beings.